Okay, so today I'm going to talk about some ongoing work looking at sort of the large-scale diversification dynamics of turtles. So this work is really growing out of something I'm not going to talk about, which is a multi-year effort now on me and some collaborators to put together a really nice, nearly complete tree of all excellent turtles. We're at the point now where this tree is sort of in hand, and now we're starting to use it to address some evolutionary questions about the clade. So one of those questions is a really simple one. Why are there so few turtles? Here I'm showing you a few major lineages of the amphiotes. And you can see turtles are among the oldest in terms of the age of their crown group, and yet are remarkably undiverse relative to other major lineages of amphiotes. And we're sort of interested in what might be going on here, what might explain this. So there has been some work on this. All of it arises from the fossil literature. And the basic message from that work is really the diversity here has been shaped by some mass extinction events. So in particular, the Eocene-Oligocene transition is a period of cooling and drying, and it seems to be that we lose a lot of diversity across that transition around 35 million years ago. So here I'm just listing many different genera. We see many of them all disappear at the same time, and here we're just looking at counts. We have this decrease right across that transition. People have followed up on this work, trying to test this idea of cool and dry versus warm and wet by doing some paleoclimate envelope predictions, again based on fossils. So here I'm showing you fossil occurrence data for a few different groups, and these maps are painted according to paleoclimate suitability for them. And the basic finding from this work is, again, warm mesic habitats seem to be sort of critical for diversification. So that sets up a hypothesis that we can test with our tree. So at a very basic level, we could take our tree and test whether we can detect a tree-wide slowdown or a tree-wide mass extinction event at that time period. Of course, we don't want to condition on only this one scenario. Many other things could be going on in this tree. The shift could occur at some different time. There could be multiple shifts, only one of which is one we care about. And really, there's a very large number of possible models that we could write down here. So the approach we took was to treat the number and the timing of these shifts as parts of the model and integrate across all of those together, and then average the parameter estimates for speciation and extinction parameters in these models. So recall we're expecting to see a slowdown right here at the Eocene-Oligocene transition, and we actually see the exact opposite of that. So that was sort of a head scratcher, a bit of a conundrum for us, and we started digging into this to try to understand what may be going on here. Why does the fossil data seem to be in wide disagreement with the tree of extant species? So to walk you through this, I'll just tell you a few facts. So this is a global map of species diversity for the clade. You'll notice there's three main hotspots. The biggest one is in the southeastern United States. After that, we have the Ganges-Brahmaputra Basin and parts of Southeast Asia, followed by the Amazon Basin. So those studies arising from the fossil record, I'm just showing you two of them here, turn out to be to use fossils that come from areas where no turtles actually occur today. So far and away the most important formation that yields these fossils is in the western United States, or the Wyoming area, which is today very warm, dry, and supports no species. So I've already told you this Eocene-Oligocene transition was a period of cooling and drying. I'm showing you those data here. This is the change in global temperatures across that time, and what I'd like you to focus on is the change in sea levels. Okay? So these are sort of massive scale changes starting a little more than 40 million years ago and really picking up as we get to the transition. So these are changes on the order of hundreds of meters. This is much larger than we're sort of thinking about today with global climate change. So those changes, that scale of change at sea level has real impacts on things like coastlines and reshaping continents. So here's a paleo map of North America as an example, 65 million years ago. And you'll notice there's a few things on this map I'd like you to notice. The first is a formerly very extensive western interior seaway is now starting to dry back. It's starting to disappear to the north. And I'd also like you to notice that the southeastern U.S. coastline is very different than it looks today. As the time goes by, we're basically at the Eocene-Oligocene transition here. The western interior seaway is basically gone, except for sort of a small isolated area of remaining music habitat. And the southeastern coastline is starting to look more like it does today. Florida is not as big, even though it's sort of not connected. Right? And then it's not until like 10 to 5 million years ago where things really start looking like they do today. So that's sort of fact one. We have this change in sea levels and change in shapes of continents. The second fact I'd like you to be aware of is if you spend a lot of time looking at range maps of turtles, as I have done, you will notice many ranges like this that really tightly hug coastlines. So this is the Florida softshell. It's basically isolated to peninsular Florida. This is a highly endangered tortoise from southern Madagascar called the spider tortoise. This is the painted terrapin in Southeast Asia. These are all areas that sort of seem to be places that would have been underwater before the Eocene-Oligocene transition. So that really sets up a new hypothesis for us that could maybe explain this discordant pattern between fossils and the extant species. So maybe as sea levels drop, that is exposing new low-lying warm mesic areas that turtles then disperse and diversify in. And that same process is really what's driving the drying up of the western interior seaway and making these formerly warm wet areas drier. So what we need to do is test that in some way. So what we did is went through all species of extant turtles and just classified their ranges according to whether they're predominantly coastal, so occurring in areas that would have been underwater, predominantly inland, or sort of widespread between the two areas. Okay. So using our phylogenetic tree and this sort of data, we can start fitting these state-dependent speciation and extinction models. So this is usually called the GOC model. It's related to the Classy model, if you're familiar with that. And essentially what we're doing is setting up a model that allows coastal areas, inland areas, and widespread areas to have different rates of speciation and extinction, as well as transitions between them. Now it's been discussed extensively in the literature now. There's some real difficulty in doing model selection among these types of models, and that really boils down to the need for a sufficiently complicated null model, not sort of a trivial one that's easy to reject. So one of the proposed solutions is to start adding unobserved traits into these models. So these are the hidden state version of the models. And essentially what these are doing is allowing some flexibility that allows speciation and extinction rates to vary in a way that is not linked to the trait data study. And so it makes it possible to set up non-trivial null models where you do have rate variation that is completely unlinked to ranges in this case. So I'm not going to get into the details of this, but suffice to say there are many possible versions of these models that differ in how many hidden states you put in, how rates of transition between different things are linked versus not, how speciation occurs. So we've investigated 10 of these models now. And across those, the best one that has come out is a geodesy model. So it has a range effect, so coastal areas have different rates than inland areas, and 2 hidden states. We see overall that models that include hidden states fit the data much, much better than those that don't. So really what that's saying is there's more going on in the diversification dynamics of turtles than just this sort of range hypothesis. And for the results I'll show you today, we've basically just taken parameter estimates from those models and averaged them across models. So this is what that looks like. We see that coastal areas have about a 3-fold higher rate of net diversification than inland areas, and widespread areas are sort of in between. That seems to be largely driven by higher rates of speciation along coastlines than inland. So that seems to support the hypothesis. Here I'm showing you a tree with ancestral states painted on it. And so all the green tips here are the coastal ones. And one thing that strikes me about this is that the transitions into coastal areas all sort of post-date the Eocene-Oligocene transition, which is marked in the dotted line. So the model doesn't really have any information about when the timing of this should occur, so it's nice that the ancestral states it's reconstructing, or at least consistent with the natural history perspective. Okay, so just to conclude, it seems that modern turtle diversity may be driven by rapid diversification in these newly exposed coastal low-lying areas. And it's really the sea level changes that lead to those areas being available that also explain this discordance between the fossil and the extant species. Okay, so I'll finish there. I want to thank Rosanna and Michael for inviting me. I think this is a timely and really interesting spotlight session to be having. I'll thank some collaborators and funding sources, and I'd be happy to take any questions. Yeah, sure.
Bob, how do you correct for the shapes of the geographic spaces that are occupied by turtles? So, for example, in Southeast Asia, practically everywhere is coastal.
Yeah, so the way we did it, I think, is not perfect. We're trying to find better ways to do it, but essentially what we're looking at is what the extent of sea level would have been just before the Eocene-Oligocene transition, and if essentially all of the range is below that elevation, it gets called coastal. The biogeography and sort of availability of habitat in Southeast Asia is enormously complex. This has been well studied, and we're trying to find better ways to do this. So.
One more question. How was it?
Okay.
Can you tell us why certified because